Okay, and welcome back to our second Layer 3 network tutorial. Okay, and what I've got here this time is I have my two networks already set up, and you can see I've been busy a little bit already by I've removed the router here that was in the middle, and I'll be honest, I tried this a few minutes ago and I wasn't sure exactly what happened, but of course now it makes a pile of sense. If you're going to continue to use your existing network and you start changing things around, you might want to click on this button down here called Power Cycle Devices. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Configure startup configuration will be lost, reset the network. Yeah, that's perfectly fine because I don't think there's that much going on. Okay, so everything is still saved. If you don't do this, things can get a little bit funny. So these will take a few seconds to boot up, but otherwise you get some very, very strange behavior, and I'll have to explain that, I think, in a later video. And just in a second while I make a note about this. Okay. Okay, good. So now I've marked that down, and I have to come back and show you another experiment another time. Okay, so if you're starting from a previous thing, delete that middle router and cycle the power. If you're starting from scratch, it actually doesn't matter at all. You can just drag out the computers and do all the configuration. Okay, so now you see the situation that I've got is I've got over here on the left hand side, I've got the IT computers, and on the right hand side, I've got the accounting computers. And this time I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to take an 1841 router and I'm going to put one right here, and I'm going to name it as the IT router. Okay, so they get their very own router. And likewise, I'm going to do the same thing over on this side, and I'm going to call this, of course, the AC router or the accounting router. Okay, now why on earth would you have one of each? Okay, well, here, let me make up one final connection. I'm going to take the switch. Okay, again, I can use any of these things, but I'll use these gigabit interfaces to plug into 00, and I'll do the same thing from here, this gigabit interface, and we'll also use the 00. Okay, so now why on earth did we end up giving IT and accounting their own routers? Well, you can imagine that maybe all the accounting computers are in one location, like maybe one building or maybe one floor of a building, and all of the accounting computers are somewhere else. So it kind of makes sense in order to localize the switches and the routers all together in one spot rather than having these big long cables go from one building to another. Better to have just one cable maybe going between the middle or between the two buildings. Okay, now you'll notice that I still have this address right here, the 192.168.30.1. Okay, well, I have to get back in. I have to reconfigure this one, so that's on this side here. So just like what we've done last time with our single router, this is 192.168.30.1. Okay, and enable that. All right, need to do exactly the same thing on this side, so let me put a label here so I remember 192.168.20.1, and also call it /24. Okay, so this is the interface. This is the router for the IT world. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, config fast Ethernet 00. I'll turn this on, and I'll give it 192.168. This will be 20.1. Okay. All right, so here's the first thing. Now, before we go too much further, we need to do a quick little check to make sure that everybody can ping everything else. So this one is still orange. So I'll give it a few seconds to clear itself. I'm going to come over to this side, and what I want to know is, can I ping the router 192.168.30.1? Because if you can't do that, then there's no reason to go any further. So that's a good sign. That much is working. And I'll come over to this side and let me see whether or not I can ping from IT1 into the IT router. Okay, and you can see that obviously I was in here a few minutes ago trying it. But let me type this once again, ping 192.168.20.1. Okay, and this is working. Okay, so that's fine so far. But of course, IT won't be able to send any messages over to accounting, and accounting won't be able to send any message over to IT because there's a missing link. Okay, so what did we do last time? What we did last time is we took the accounting switch and we plugged it into this router. This time, I'm not going to do this type of thing. The only place that the accounting computers talk to is the accounting router. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try connecting a wire between Fast Ethernet 01 on this side to Fast Ethernet 01 on this side. Okay, so now what on earth is this? Well, this is a link that goes between the two buildings. Okay, well, you know what? It's simply a network. How many computers does it have on it? Well, it actually only has two things. It only has two routers. There's actually no computer attached to it. There could be a switch with multiple computers, but I don't think it'll make very much sense. Maybe for testing purposes, but for actually routing between one building to another, there probably wouldn't be anything else. But one of the things that we're going to need to have is we are going to need to have some addresses. Now, what address do we use? Well, can it be 192.168.20. Something? And the answer is no. I can't do this because the 192.168.20 network is already in use. Uh, okay, well, how about 30? Well, no, I can't really use 30 because it's on the other side. Okay, could I use 40? And the answer is yes, I certainly could. But in order to make this just completely different, because it is a very different type of network, I'm going to grab completely different looking numbers. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this case is let me grab some very different looking numbers. I'll use the number 200.1.1.1/24. Okay, so there's an IP address. It's just a number. Sorry, it is in here, and let me move this up a little bit closer. Okay, so there we go. So this router has two interfaces. One is on the IT network, and the other is this magical number. But again, I could have picked any other number as long as it didn't conflict with any of my existing networks. So I made it a little bit different. So it starts with 200. Okay, now what I need to do is let's go over to this side, and I need to also give this end a number. Okay, now what do you think about 1.1.1/24? What do you think? Is it going to work? I hope you said no, because the left-hand side of this network is exactly the same thing. This needs to be something different. Okay, could be 2, could be 3, could be 10, could be 200, could be 208, could be 254, but it has to be different than the other side. Okay, because you can't have two network or two interfaces with the same network address. Okay, so perfect. That's what we've got. So now you see what I've done is now I actually have three networks, two routers, three networks. I have the IT network, I have the accounting network, and I have some network in the middle which connects the two networks together. Now I'm seeing some red dots here, so obviously I've got some issues. So let's see if we can fix this up a little bit. Of course, we know what we're going to do. It's this one right here. We're going to give it the address. Okay, let me check this one right here, 200.1.1.1. Okay, and that's a 255.255.255, and I'm going to put the on message, and we're going to say, oh, that never fixed. Well, that's because this end is also off. So we're going to come in here, and we're going to do exactly the same thing for this end of the router. So 200.1.1.2, and I'll also turn this on. Okay, do you notice something is still not working? Now, if it had been orange, you might say, okay, fine, it's taking a few seconds to understand what's happening. Unfortunately, it's still red. The reason for this is quite simple. It has to do with the type of cable we picked. Now, if you remember when we did something in class, we took two PCs, one PC to another PC, and we tried a straight cable, but it ended up not working. That's because the transmit lines were talking to each other. The exact same thing does happen in the world of routers. We can't use one of these straight cables. We have to use a crossover cable. Now, a lot of routers these days are actually smart enough, and it knows if you plug the wrong type of cable in, it'll probably figure it out, but Cisco Packet Tracer just doesn't do it. So let me click this and let me throw this away. Unfortunately, we're going to need one of these types of cables. So connect this cable over to here. Okay, and well, guess what? It's turned green because I've already configured the interface. Okay, now, perfect. So 192.168.20.1, 200.111, 200.112, 192.168.30.1. So I've got three different networks and I've got two routers. Okay, so is this enough to get us going? Well, let me pop open something and see if we can figure out whether or not this is going to work. So here we go. The first thing I'm going to try pinging over on the left hand side is, well, you know what? Not that I'm expecting this is going to fail, but I'm going to start by pinging myself. Okay, good. That's working. By the way, you can always press Control C and that'll stop a ping halfway through. Okay, I can ping myself. Can I ping the other computer at 0.25? And the answer is yes, I can. Okay, can I ping the router at 20.1? And the answer is yes, I can. Now the question becomes, can I ping, say, a number like 200.1.1.1? Okay, well, let's give it a try. 200.1.1.1. Okay, and yes, it seems to know how to do that type of thing. Okay, so that's actually a good sign. And what about 1.1.2? Because that is simply at the other end. Oh, but that doesn't seem to be working so well. Okay, so let's stop this one. Let's come over to here. Okay, so this is the accounting computer, and let's try pinging back. Let's try pinging 192.168.30.1. Okay, that's working. And let's try the router, the other end of the router, which is 200, let's see, 200.1.1.2, and that knows what's going on. But if you try pinging this one, it looks like it's failing. And you might say, okay, well, there's obviously something wrong with this broken wire. Actually, it doesn't have anything to do with the broken wire. It has to do with some other things that the way how we've configured it, or more to the point, the lack of configuration that we've done. Okay, so we'll put this away while I explain. Okay, we know we've already been through here and we've configured what's known as the default gateway as 192.168.200.1. Okay, now here's what happens. If you were to open up this, so let's start off with this one, ping 192.168.30.22. Okay, and this is actually complaining quite a bit. It isn't just that it doesn't work, it says, I can't get there. Okay, that's the important one that I want to talk about. Why it couldn't get here? Yeah, I can explain that one in a second, but this one's probably much easier. Okay, so here's what happens. A ping request starts here, and you say, hey, I need to send it to 192.168.30.22. And here's what happens. My default gateway is this router right here. So the packet comes down, but this router knows about the addresses at 192.168.20, and it knows about the network's 200.1.1. But it doesn't know anything about 192.168.30. Okay, because this doesn't know anything about 192.168.30, it has no idea to send it over to this router. Okay, there's the first thing. And the same thing is true this side. If an accounting computer tries to talk to an IT computer, it would hand a packet here, but this router knows nothing about 192.168.1.20 because it's a completely separate router. Okay, now why did my 100.1.2 not work? Well, because the ping has to respond back from the AC router, and again, the AC router doesn't know anything about the IT network. So what we need to do is we need to teach the routers about what goes on. Now, there's two ways of doing this. There's something called a static route where you can go into this router and you can say, well, if you ever get something destined for the accounting computers, send it over here. And that's this area right here called static routing. So what you would do is you would say, hey, I've got something destined for 192.168.30. According to the subnet mask, where do I give it? I give it the 200.1.1.2. And that is known as static addressing. We're not going to worry about this in this course because the whole purpose is I just want you to get used to the idea of networking and routing and how it works. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use this thing here called RIP, which sounds a little ominous, but it actually does the things that we're looking for. What it's called Route Information Protocol routing. Okay, and it's actually very easy to set up. It can be done very, very quickly. All that you do, so remember, this is the IT router. You come here and you start marking down networks that you know about. So I'm an IT router, therefore I know about the addresses 192.168.30.20.0. So why did I add the .0? Well, if you remember under the subnet mask, eventually when you get down to the host, everything is 0. That's actually so the computer names are 0, the network bits are all 1. So what I've done is I've simply applied that. So it's basically a network without the host number. Okay, all I do is I add it. Okay, so this is a network address that I'm now going to broadcast to other people. Who else? Well, I can broadcast it over to here. What else do I know about? Okay, well, I also know about 200.1.1.1. Well, okay, it's this number right here, 200.1.1.0. That's the network. So those are the two things that I know about as an IT router. Well, guess what? The accounting router knows similar types of things. The IT router, okay, here under RIP, knows about the network 192.168.30.0, and it also knows about the network 200.1.1.0. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and add this. So those are all the things that I know about. Now, what's going to happen is over time, every couple of seconds, this router is going to broadcast out a bunch of information over to here saying, this is what I know about. So in other words, this accounting router will eventually learn about the network 192.168.20, and it knows to get there, it gives it to this IT router. The same thing is true over on this side. Okay, now here's the magic. So let's do one quick little thing. Okay, which is now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to try pinging the 192.168.30.22, and it's one of these things I hope is going to work. Okay, and of course, yes, actually it is working right now, because what happens is the packet goes out here from 20.22, makes it to the router, and the router says, okay, I don't know anything directly about 192.168.30, but from the route information protocol, or the RIP packets, I know that there's a network over here and this guy knows about it. So what I'm doing is I'm moving the packet to somewhere a little bit closer than what I already know. Now, it's an interesting thing. If you want to try this, by all means, you can go and do it. I'm going to come over here to this particular IT router. I'm going to go to something called the CLI. I'm going to type the word end, okay, to get out of a configuration, and I'm going to type the command show IP route. Okay, now take a look at the information that's down here. It says 192.168.20.24 is directly connected on Fast Ethernet 00. It also says that 200.1.0.0 24 is directly connected by Fast Ethernet 01. And take a look at this. It also knows through R, which is called RIP, it knows that 192.168.30.24 can be reached by handing it over to the IP address 200.1.2 on Fast Ethernet 01. That's actually the magic about how the entire thing works. Okay, one final command, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you stop this video, and I want you to go off and actually try this and make sure that you got all of these commands to work, and that you can ping from one to the other, and from any other values, or from any other addresses to the other addresses. Okay, and sorry, now I'm completely forget what I was going to get you to do. Okay, so that's what I want you to do is I'll leave the video here for a couple of seconds so you can pause it, so you can follow exactly the same configuration, and make sure that you can ping, say, from 192.168.20.24 or 25/24 all the way down to this one right here. One thing to point out, so I bet if I try this, I will probably get what I'm looking for. So let me try 192.168.30.143. Okay, good. That's exactly what I was hoping for. When you first hit this ping, you immediately, your heart sinks, thinking, oh, I've done something wrong, and it says request timed out. Okay, but if you give it a few seconds, it does figure it out. Okay, so what's happening? Well, if you go back and you think about the ARP requests, somebody eventually has to go out and find the actual address. So the packet makes its way up to here, down to here, into the router, across to the other router, and now the router to the final connection it's going to take a little bit of time, because it has to do the ARP broadcast first to figure out who's got this machine, then actually send out the layer 2 packet in order to reach the destination. And that's why you'll see the very first time you try pinging something, it doesn't work, but usually it'll remember everything afterwards. Okay, so please give this one a try. This is also not to be submitted into D2L, but I will have another exercise coming up very, very soon. Okay, and that's going to be our next part. So see you next time.